At Dave Cooper Live, we connect the industry leaders in the architectural, engineering, and construction space with the people, the products, and the processes to help them build it better. The construction industry is under pressure like never before. Rising costs, labor shortages, broken permanent processes, and schedules that feel more like guesses than plans. We have cars that park themselves, computers in our pockets, and satellites guiding bulldozers. Yet, construction schedules still fall apart over permits, inspection, weather delays. Everyone's talking about modular and offsite construction as the solution, but very few people are willing to talk honestly about where it works, where it breaks, and what it actually takes to deliver predictable results at scale. Today on Dave Cooper Live, we are joined by Brandon Ryckman, a construction leader who has lived on both sides of the industry, traditional general contracting and large-scale modular multifamily delivery. Brandon has managed millions of square feet across the U.S. and Canada, led projects ranging from $70 million to $140 million, and spent the last 7 years deep in modular construction operations. He understands factory precision, site-side reality, and most importantly, why projects don't fail halfway through. They usually start wrong. Today's conversation is about predictability, planning, leadership, and the real future of modular construction. Not hype, not theory, but lessons learned the hard way. If you're a developer, builder, investor, or industry leader trying to understand how offsite construction actually fits into the future of the built environment, this episode is for you. But before we get into any or all of this, we first have to thank our supporting members. CombiLift is the largest global manufacturer of multi-directional forklifts and straddle carriers, a leader in long load handling solutions, offering a free warehouse and site optimization design service. CombiLift helps companies of all sizes and from every industry maximize the capacity, safety, and efficiency of their warehouse and storage facilities. A big thank you to Paul Short and the team at CombiLift for helping us all to build it better. Visit them at combilift.com. Every build deserves comfort that lasts. Cobalt Creed helps builders and offsite manufacturers reach new levels of indoor air quality and efficiency. With their proprietary small duct, high-velocity central heating and cooling system, quiet, compact, powerful, Cobalt Creed, building comfort into every building. Learn more at cobaltcreed.com. All right, welcome everybody to 2026. I can't even believe it's already 2026. Listen, we're going to have a heck of a year for you because we're going bigger, bolder, and further than we have ever gone. And we got big plans in store all the way to the top and possibly all the way to the White House at some point this year. But before we get into any or all that, we got to thank all of our supporting members, not just the ones you just watched. See the ticker below. If you want to support us, we'd love to have your support in this show as we grow and we continue educating the world on what offsite construction is, what the future of construction is. Let's talk about the built environment and how we build it better for all. So thank you, and reach out if you need anything further. All right. So today's conversation is with someone who has actually lived, that's right, actually lived on both sides of the industry, traditional construction and modular at scale, not theory, not hype, built millions of square feet, multiple markets, real pro formers, something that we're all dealing with. Let's bring Brandon onto the show. Brandon, how are you, my friend?
I'm doing great, Dave.
It's awesome to have you here with us today. Man, I have been following you forever and a day. I mean, you've been building some of the biggest projects. You always stay behind the scenes, all quiet type back there. So this is a real honor to have somebody that's done so much for our industry on the show. So thanks for joining us.
It's great to be here.
All right. You know how this goes, man. If you've seen the show, we want to know everything about you from the moment you were born to this very moment in time. Do not leave out any of the good stuff from the hospital, or we're going to have your family members on the show. And that could get a little embarrassing, but I couldn't imagine too much. Go ahead. The floor is yours. Tell us who you are, where you come from, and then we'll hop into what you're doing today.
All right. Well, if you want me to go way back, I was born and raised in a small town called Holt in Michigan, just west of Lansing. I grew up in a household where my father owned a few real estate companies. So I was always somewhat in the business, and then eventually he got into some smaller residential developers. But I remember growing up, I was always the kid to grab whatever nails I could find, and I'm just randomly pounding into whatever blocks of wood I could muster. But graduate from Michigan State University, construction management program. After graduation, I actually went into I built houses for about 10 years, wide range of houses, 250,000 to a couple $1 million. And obviously in 2007, when things went south, I went onto the commercial side of things, and I was there for about 12 years. Very diverse on that aspect. I built everything from linear accelerator vaults to millions of square feet of senior housing. It just hit a point in 2017, really 18, where something needed to change, right? Like construction just wasn't advancing on the traditional side. So I found my way into modular, and I've been doing that ever since for like the last 7 years or so.
I mean, that's kind of it, right? You didn't start in modular. You sensed something had to change, and I like to say you kind of earned your way into it, because to me, it's a privilege to be in this industry. For you, what changes when someone who is running traditional projects becomes a modular general contractor or developer or builder?
Well, I mean, for the most part, your vertical aspect is done in a factory, right? You mentally, you have to change the way you think. I'll say one of the hardest transitions, just building up a modular GC, is coming into it being open-minded, right? I get a lot of 20 or 30-year constructors that have been taught to do things a certain way. And it's really difficult for them to adjust to the modular side, right? Things are done differently. Your infrastructure, your roads, your horizontal aspects are going in while your vertical aspects are being done somewhere else, right? And then you need to take those vertical aspects and you need to continue the momentum, set them, and then keep going. So mentally, the shift, especially for long time traditional constructors, is the most difficult component of it.
So when you say the mental shift, let's talk about this for a minute, right? Because it truly is a mental shift in the process on how we traditionally build versus when we build using offsite construction, whether it's panels, modules, whatever the case is. Would
Mhm.
you say that's kind of the hardest part for people in this industry to really start wrapping their heads around how this actually works? Because everything changes, the workflow changes, the job flow changes, the planning changes. Is it the mental shift that's the hardest part?
Yeah, I mean, as I do interviews and things like that, um, in the back of my mind, and I've told people this before, if somebody comes to me with a "I've been there, done that, I've built it" mentality, they're likely not from modular, right? It's an entirely different aspect of construction. It's more advanced, it's faster, and things just don't flow the same way. Your schedule is not the same, right? Again, your vertical component is being done somewhere else, right? So you gotta be able to understand that somebody else is controlling a portion of your job site. You're taught traditionally, you own it, right? It's your job site. Everything on that job site is yours. You own
Right.
the entirety of it. Someone else is doing some of that now.
So if I'm a developer, Brandon, what do you think the most broken assumption is that I have about modular construction? What are you seeing as to why most people don't take that leap of faith and truly understand it? Is it because we've tried that? Oh, I've done this, like you just said previously, what is your take on that?
I think the expectations need to be set, right? I mean, listen, modular companies are going to sell the speed, right? They're going to sell the completion of the modules, and that is 100% correct. But there are still site side traditional aspects to it, right? So you got to set your expectations going into it. Is it going to be faster than traditional? Yeah, and it's probably 50 to 60% faster than traditional. But you're still once the modules leave that factory, you lose the roof, right? You lose the production lines. You start inserting subcontractors, municipalities, weather, a whole lot of other factors that you don't have in a factory. So setting expectations up front, especially from the developer side that's going to go into something, understand that yes, it's going to be faster. If it's a 28-month traditional build, it's probably going to be a 15 or 16-month modular build. Um, but some things are still going to happen.
Well, I mean, so I want to clarify one thing. When you say you lose the roof, you're not talking about losing the roof on the modules.
Now,
You're not working indoors where it's sunny and 70 all day, year long. Is that
yeah, yeah, yeah,
is
yeah,
that the
yeah.
is that the
Good
concept?
clarification. Yeah, 100%.
Yeah. So, where does modular actually give certainty to developers in your mind? And where is it still kind of falling short or falling apart?
Well, the certainty definitely is in the housing spaces, the vertical components, right?
Mhm.
I've always taught my people that traditional construction has basically two milestones, right? It's a break ground and certificate occupancy. Modular has break ground, set modules, certificate occupancy, right? So the uncertainty or the variables that come into play on the site side are breaking ground to set and then set to open. And the inside, the modules, the apartments are never going to be the reason why a development does not open on time. It's always going to be the site aspects and the weather and the municipalities and the inspectors and so on and so forth, right? Whereas traditionally, when you're building multifamily, you can't get out of the apartments, right? You're constantly chasing punch lists. The grab bar's missing here. Fire alarm devices aren't installed in this unit, and you're constantly chasing stuff like that. The certainty in modulars, that stuff is done, and you don't necessarily need to worry about that.
So you're taking a lot of the site coordination completely out of the picture, is what you're saying, right? Now you're just focused on delivering a product and making the connections for the units. You're not having to deal. I mean, one, you cut down the on-site labor, right? Guys getting paid on Thursday, don't show back up till Monday because they went to the bar for the weekend, right? These are all realities. I hate that,
Yeah,
it's not a stigma. This stuff really happens.
sure.
But what you're basically saying is when you come to large scale development or just even small scale development using offsite construction, you're reducing all of those risks that are taken on traditional job sites because it's being done in a controlled environment and it's being done in a process based on a line move. not
Yep.
based on waiting on a permit, or an inspector to come and say, "Oh yeah, that's right, you can move forward."
That's right. Yep.
Got it. Got it. So, one of the big questions is, permitting, right? Since I used the word permit a minute ago, does permitting kill more projects, or do factories not being able to produce kill more projects?
Permitting all day long.
And why is
It's
that?
uh, well, first off, you could if to just say you're producing four modules a day, right, in a factory, and it takes you maybe 5 months to complete an average project of modules. It'll take you 8 to 10 um, in a good municipality to permit it, right? So entitling takes twice as long, which means your forecasting has to be there. So you're forecasting your production based on an assumed break ground date that 100% could get hung up over a number of things within the municipality. Um, a big knowledgeable municipalities about modular are just not out there, right? Not too many have touched it yet. We've spent a lot of time with them, walking factories, doing scope of work with state, because a lot of the modular stuff is actually the authority having jurisdiction is the state, and not necessarily the local jurisdiction, which is a big curveball for local. So we spent a lot of time getting those two people together. But still, at the end of the day, municipalities have their processes. And those processes will run interference on a schedule, on a delivery schedule, on a set schedule, on an opening schedule.
So commercial construction, whether it's multifamily units or single family units, if we get into just residential builds, I mean, it's all the same problems, right? We're hearing the same things on both sides. It's the permitting process. It's what causes the most delays. Yet we all want the speed. We all want the efficiencies. We all want the predictability of what we're doing. On the permitting side, do you ever see that changing? Do you ever see the world of site inspectors, local municipality inspectors really being up to par on what modular is, and having a set code that says, hey, if we just did these things, it would speed up our process?
I think that is definitely one thing that the industry needs to put on the forefront. Um, Knowledgeable municipalities and teaching them about modular and how it interacts with the site. Again, I talked about the 20 or 30-year constructors. You've got 20 or 30-year inspectors, right?
Right.
That some of them look at this as you're taking my jobs away from me, right? You're building this stuff in a factory, and you're taking it off the job site, and that's my work. That's what I do for a living. Getting in front of those guys and explaining to them why we want to do it this way, and the benefits this has to construction is a big deal. It also, and I won't name any names, but I've had two recent municipalities um, where one took me 40 months to entitle it, and the other one took 4 years. Like that is a tragedy, right? And I don't know necessarily how to combat that. Certainly when you get into the bigger municipalities that that are absorbing and taking most of the new tenants, it's tough to get into those people and to really speak to them. But I'll say that the smaller municipalities, they're more open-minded. There's not as many processes in place, and you can typically work with them.
Yeah.
The fastest I've entitled is 8 months, and again, the longest it's taken for me is 4 years.
I mean, this just blows my mind, right? Would it take 4 years if it was a traditional site built project, or was it only because it was an offsite modular project?
No, I think it would be similar, right? The issue is that they don't understand modular, right? They don't. When you go to them and say, the intent here is that we're building these in a factory, and I can produce a 36 unit apartment building in 3.5 weeks in a factory,
Yeah.
and I can install it in 3 days on site, right? Like that's an insane statistic, right? When you're trying to dent the housing crisis, there's no better way to do that. But people in a municipality look at you cross-eyed going, but we have a process.
Yeah.
So, that's great. And that what you guys are doing is fantastic, and it's amazing to walk your factory and to walk your job sites. But at the end of the day, this is how we do things. Like,
So I'm gonna put a little personal story into what you just said, right? I
sure.
had this job in Greenwich, Connecticut, and I don't mind calling out Greenwich, Connecticut building department on this one, right?
Yeah.
Had the modulars delivered. The inspector showed up and said, we didn't do an insulation inspection. Ha! And I'm like, if it's modular, all is, for those of you watching out there, the sheetrock's on, everything's in, the wiring's in there. That was already inspected and approved by the third party engineer. That's approved by the state. And we got into a kind of an argument, as so to speak, on site because of this, because I'm not tearing open all the walls so you can inspect the insulation. It's
Yeah.
already been approved. So here's a tip for everybody out there. All the state and local inspectors work for a head state inspector that oversees them all. There is somebody at the top, and I will never forget it. I think his name was Tierney. I called him up and he said, "What?" I said, "I'm telling you." He's asking me. By the way, it was resolved by the end of the day. He
Yeah.
was told to get his head out of his, what,
Yeah.
on this. But there is some of that power trip. They feel like they're losing, but the reality is most municipalities are actually pulling from other municipalities now because they can't get to it all.
Yep.
And people are waiting weeks to just get a simple, footer inspection or even a electrical inspection. So I always like to say they'll be able to do more with less. It actually takes pressure off them because they're not losing their job. They're state government officials. Somebody needs to still do this stuff.
Yeah.
It actually makes your job a little bit easier, in my opinion. Sorry about that. That's my soapbox.
No,
Call
no,
your
it's good.
head state inspector. That's what I always say.
Yeah. Yeah.
But when you're getting into projects at scale like you were dealing with, right? I mean, there's politics involved. It's large land plots. It's much different than a smaller project.
Yeah.
So in all of this, all right. So permitting's an issue. You said projects don't go wrong; they start wrong. What do you mean by that?
I mean, I'm a huge proponent of early planning, right? There's a thing in construction, certainly traditionally, where the pre-construction department runs everything, bidding, buyouts, so on and so forth, and then they hand it off to the site-based team, right? And it's like a relay race. If there's a baton that drops, you're done, right? You lost it. So I involve my teams early on to get a proper start, right? So I insert my site teams into the pre-construction at some point, not overly early, but at some point, so they come out of the gate as intelligent about the whole project as they can be, right? There's a book that a peer had recommended, and actually our entire executive team ran. It's called How Big Things Get Done, and it went through a number of perils in the business overall, and it actually is a proponent of modular. But one of the things that stuck out to me, a huge part of it is plan, like spend, like planning's cheap, right? The mistakes that you're going to make if you don't plan are not cheap. Many decisions in construction are not reversible. You can't go back, right? So plan. In a term that has stuck with me is if I had 5 minutes to cut down a tree, I would sharpen the axe for 3 of those.
Yeah,
I mean,
that's actually right.
right?
Right.
It's
Yeah.
not expensive to plan, right? And so just get out in front of it, and that's the theory behind start right, right? It's not going to go wrong if you start it right.
Well, and I think that's kind of it as well, because just like the, local municipalities, the inspectors, when you're building a new project in a new area, a lot of the trades have not worked on modular. There's a lot that have, but
Mhm.
there's a lot more that have not, and they don't understand the full scope. They don't understand how to price it a lot of times, right? Because they don't understand where their job starts or ends. And how do you overcome that hurdle? Is that all part of the pre-planning phase? And can you really do an offsite project without having all the stakeholders at the table before it starts?
It's difficult. I mean, you spend a lot of time bringing trades through the factory in previous projects that you've built, but at the end of the day, you still want that competitive side of the bidding, and you want your, handful, 3, 4, 5 competitive hard bid numbers, right? Like, um, And eventually, the more that you build, you'll create that group of trades that became experienced. In essence, Dave, you're teaching them. You're investing in the subcontractor to make your project better, to go smoother, and to save money. And that takes a little bit of time, but you eventually you get to the trades that know exactly what you're doing and exactly what they need to tie in, where their tie-in point is. And I'll be honest with you, the good ones will actually give feedback, right?
Yeah.
They'll give production changes. Like you should do this instead of this because this will save me this, and I don't have to put this junction box in here. You can do this in the factory, and all I got to do is run it this way. That's what you want to foster, right? That's the type of stuff that you want to involve the traditional side into the modular.
Well, and that's it, right? I mean, I've been in meetings where you have the plumber and electrician and the HVAC guy together, and then one of them goes, "Well, that code just changed this year. I can't do that same drop or this and that. So you're going to actually have to move your equipment over here, or we got to." Right? I mean, this is all real conversation. I mean, the code book's what, 4,500 pages in depth. We all can't know everything of it.
Yeah.
And it's kind of funny, one of the other comments is, but our constitution's like 14 pages, but the code book's like 4,500 pages,
Yeah.
right? That guides this. So there's a lot of that. Let's talk about, materials, right? Wood-based, steel, you've kind of done both, haven't you?
Yeah, extensively. Traditionally, I was primarily stick built. Towards the last 3 or 4 years, big panelization really started to flourish a little bit more. And then ever since I've been on the modular side, it's been strictly steel and metal studs.
Steel and metal studs. I know you probably don't want to answer. What do you like better, steel or wood when it comes to offsite construction?
Um, I think they both have their pros and cons, to be honest with you. Obviously, with steel, you can't slam a rim joist back into square if you need to, right? Like it's there and it's there, right?
Yeah.
So the precision has to be there on the steel side. Otherwise, it does cost. I mean, anything you have to do outside of the factory to fix whatever the factory did is going to cost you 3 times more, right? Like so, um, the precision has to be there on the steel side. On the wood side, not to say it doesn't have to be precise, but it doesn't have to be nearly as precise. Um, the absolute biggest difference in my mind is the code and the height, right? So,
Yeah.
once you get to 5 stories, um, by code, I believe you can still build with wood, but it gets very, very costly, and you gotta work really, really hard at it. So that's where you're gonna see most of the 5 above 4 is gonna go to steel, and anything below that's gonna be wood. Um, and that's
Yeah.
typically the major difference. And the big thing with steel, right? You can go much higher, and that gets you your density.
Yeah, no, I definitely agree with that. And you have more precision with steel because you don't have
Mhm.
crowns and things of that nature. I mean, there's a reason they don't make 110-foot skyscrapers out of wood as well. Outside
Sure.
code doesn't allow it for
Right.
that instance. Let's talk about just get into the weeds for a second here, which a lot of people come across when they build offsite, right? They say, okay, and I'll use a single family home, just 2-story as an example. The local municipality says I have a height requirement, of 35 feet.
Mhm.
And we have a couple extra inches in between modules because typically the roof and the floor are 2 separate units, right? Your floor joists sit on top of the roof joist because you have finished product. Is this something that you come across, and has it ever been a problem for you when you're actually having to meet height requirements when building using offsite and modular?
Typically only in the taller stuff. The 3-story garden style stuff is pretty standard, height-wise. And again, um, it all depends on the ceiling heights and things like that that you wanna get inside your apartments, right? I mean, if you're gonna get voluptuous, you're obviously gonna run into standard heights, so on and so forth. I
Mhm.
will say the one thing with, um, height restrictions, right? Like you can easily, once you get into 5 stories, and even 4 sometimes, um, there's not as much real estate for that, right? Certainly in the outskirts of the municipalities and the suburbs and things like that.
Right.
Um, so finding sites that are zoned appropriately for the use and the height and all that other stuff is really, really key, to maintaining progress on the modular side.
Yeah. So you've seen what not to do in modular construction. Do you have any suggestions or thoughts on, some of the leadership mistakes that cost, modular construction projects the most money? Is it the planning side? Or like, what can leadership do differently with their teams to have a successful modular project, I should say?
Well, I think it is the planning side primarily, right? There's always a push traditionally to break ground. Like, let's go. Um, I have never seen a permit set of drawings be 100% ready to build off of. But yet, on the traditional side, you still do it. Um, and that's more impactful on the modular side because it goes back to the expectations. But um, spending that time early on, I would also say that a couple of extra bodies are far less expensive than not being able to plan or having a hiccup during construction, right? The general conditions aspect of traditional somewhat needs to go away, right? It doesn't have to go away entirely, and obviously it costs money, but spend the money on the people. Um, you've got the two primarily two primary people to a construction project. That's your project manager and your superintendent. And I got a saying that um, the superintendent's going to drive the bus, and the project manager is going to keep the lights green, right? Don't shortchange those people. Don't overload them, right? Don't think a project manager can do 2 or 3 projects at a time and a project engineer can handle 4, right? It's a mistake. It's just going to cost money at the end. You're going to burn people out. Um, and you certainly it's just going to be harmful at the end of the day.
Would you say, because you've lived on both sides of the aisle, the traditional and the offsite space, can anybody jump right in that has a traditional project management skill set and jump right into a large modular project?
No, I mean, can they? Yeah. You know, is it the right thing to do? Not necessarily. Like I've always tried to bring people on 90 to 120 days before a project starts. And I've always been the type to, um, double up, right? If somebody's coming off of a project, they're not getting laid off. They're going to go work along people that are still active, right? They're going to learn lessons learned in the collaboration between sites is critical. Um, so
Yeah.
yeah, I mean, you might know how to break ground and put roads in and infrastructure and everything else, but you've never felt the fact that someone's shipping your units to you. Um, you don't understand the precision that needs to go into it. You can't just drill an epoxy in embed and move it 2 inches, right? Real time, like you can in traditional, right? So there's a lot of different stuff that you have to learn and a lot of different perils that um, that need to be handed over.
Listen, when you have 100 modules showing up, I mean, you got to understand staging. I mean, even a crane having to move over 2 feet is thousands of dollars to break down and move a crane, right? Just because it's off. So the coordination of not even building the building, just being prepared to build the building is much different than a site project will ever be.
Sure, I mean, you bring up a great example. What type of crane are you even going to need? Right? Is it a hydro? Is it a crawler? And what's your crane path? Right? What's your module path? How are you bringing them into the site? Where a road stoned in, and what's your building order, so on and so forth. The plant is producing in a certain order. You need to be prepared to accept that order um, on the site side. And if there's not collaboration there, and you're not intelligent about what the best route is, it's going to be a disaster.
And disasters cost money, and that's where you lose in offsite construction. So that planning super important. So in your mind, with construction and modular, what has to still change for modular and offsite construction, whether it's panel or modular, to truly start to scale? What's missing? Why are more people not embracing this in your mind?
Well, scaling is very, very difficult without a backlog, right? I still think that people aren't embracing it because they're stuck, right? They're stuck on traditional. Maybe they don't believe in modular yet. Um, and maybe they're just stuck in their ways. But it is a challenge as a developer, and we've talked about this a little bit. the backlog's really, really important for a production factory, right? I mean, if um, traditionally you forecast, and you do it on a modular site too, but you forecast for the year, and there's a whole number of things that could go wrong, right? You could lose funding, your permit could get held up, weather delays, whatever it might be, which is going to 100% affect that forecast. If you don't have the backlog in place and you don't have the projects that you can just shift in behind it, it becomes problematic. I think that is a fear too, and I think that is a big reason why modular hasn't necessarily gotten larger. Um, is the fact that the backlog needs to be. There's a lot of developers that are might not necessarily want to invest in that backlog yet, or believe in modular in order to give it to it.
Yeah. Can you give me any examples of that? You know, when you say the backlog and not believing in modular, because I would assume if I'm a developer and I have a backlog, I want to get my stuff built so I can get people moved in before the market changes. No, or is it the factory backlog?
It's the factory backlog, right?
Mhm.
The factory has to have the backlog in order to keep going. I'll give you a great example.
Yeah.
COVID, right? Hospitality was 5 years ago. Modular, at least from my seat, was primarily hospitality, right? The Marriotts and the Hyatts and all that
Yeah.
other stuff. Um, and then when COVID hit and occupancy went down to 3%, anybody that had anything that was planned to be modular just giggled, right? Like, there's no way I'm putting this online, right? There's no way we're going to be able to give you 10% or whatever it is
Right.
deposit to get started, right? If you don't have something else planned, your factory's shutting down, right? And
Yeah.
and that's reality. I think we have to work better from a modular standpoint of, and you're not going to be able to get the backlog until you convince the large developers that this is the way to go, right? That's the only path.
Well, I mean, that's it, you know, and some of the most successful modular manufacturing companies out there have relationships already with developers that have that backlog of product, which secures the product in the, you know, the factory lines. It makes it easy for everybody to scale together, period.
Yep. Yep.
You know, and that's the biggest thing versus a one-off project here, a one-off project there,
Yep.
and what have you. The market's changing. The workforce is dwindling away. The workforce is being shipped out of the country, right? Well, however you want to look at it, everybody's feeling the pinch for skilled labor, not just labor, but skilled labor. Do you see that as a good thing for people really starting to take a good look on how they get more done with less? The offsite industry, is it a solution for the bigger developers and the players out there to start leveraging what they can build?
Yeah, I think it is. Um, it is obviously the labor is problematic, certainly in today's administration as well, right? I felt it firsthand in Arizona, but um, modular definitely um, is a boost to that, right? Especially the factory side of it, right? You could even lose hands in a factory, and so still keep um, close to the data on the production. Whereas site side, I've had sites go from 160 people to 80 overnight. Um, and so you're still, even though the site might be affected by the labor, you're still I'm not gonna say guaranteed, but you're still solid and stable within the factory that is building your vertical component, right? And so you can still supplement on the site, try to keep some semblance of the schedule that you have, while knowing that your product, right, the primary portion of your product and your use is still being built in the factory.
Brandon, what haven't we talked about today that you think super important to let the world out there know about modular construction? Brandon Ryckman, any of the above. The floor is yours.
Yeah. Well, I think, you know, there's a lot of question about it is what's the future of modular, right? And is it necessary? And my answer to that is yes, right? There still needs to be a huge push on modular, certainly from the housing standpoint. When you talk about timeframes and schedules and housing crises and things like that, um, legitimately stick built projects are taking 2.5, 3 years, even longer sometimes, right? So I do think that it's a big part, and I also like it's not for every project, but there are still archaic and broke aspects of traditional construction, and you hit on some of that in the beginning there. But I think that's a big reason why modular's got to continue. It has to, in order to optimize the industry in general, we need modular building.
Yeah, we definitely. There's no two ways about it, right? Like I said, we're building skyscrapers 110 stories within millimeters of perfection, right? Heck, they even put weights at the top to make up for the wind flow, and we can't even get a foundation within a quarter of an inch of square. It just blows my mind,
Yeah.
you know. And like I said earlier, bulldozers are being run by satellites. The
Yeah.
whole thing seems like we're very archaic, but it is also feeling like, you know, the changes in the air. Right. Things need to happen. We have too many people living on the streets. We have a huge retirement population coming. Where are they moving to? We don't even have enough housing for people that want them on that scale. So, Brandon, man, I really appreciate you taking the time to join us today and kind of give us the inside scoop. We really haven't had a true project manager. You know, like when I say project manager, VP of construction, I mean, you are actually the one that are running these, you know, multi-million-dollar projects and having to coordinate it. And I'm surprised you still have all your hair, unlike myself.
Well, more of it's gray, that's for sure.
Yeah, well, that just comes with the territory and the dividends of longevity, right? So,
sure, yeah.
Well, Brandon, we really appreciate having you on the show. All of our supporting members appreciate having you on the show, and I look forward to seeing, you know, the next projects that you're working on, and if there's anything that we can do to help you, please never hesitate to ask. And hey, we want to come cover your projects as well, so we can show the world what you're doing.
Yeah, it sounds great, Dave. Thanks for having me.
Brandon, thank you for being part of the show. All right, everybody, guess what? 2026, we're just kicking the year off. We're going to take this year to a whole nother level. So with that said, make sure you tune in. Make sure you support us this year and be a part of what we're doing. We're going all the way to the White House this year, if I have it my way. And we're going to go all the way to the bigger, baddest developers that are on the planet. And we're going to start talking to them about how we can make offsite construction more mainstream and not an afterthought for so many of the people out there. This is where it all happens. This is where everything starts, and that's with conversations. So I'm Dave Cooper, everybody. I hope you had a wonderful new year. I look forward to spending all of 2026 with all of you out there. I'm Dave Cooper. Thanks for watching. What an amazing show. Thank you to all of our sponsors for helping us to continue to bring all of these innovative conversations to all of you out there. Please visit them, see what they have to offer you. And as always, subscribe to the YouTube channel and ring that bell. It would mean the world to us. I'm Dave Cooper. Thanks for watching.